Well, good day and welcome to you. It is October the 6th. And as always, I like to lift the spirits of those around me, whether they're physically around me or here on YouTube. But I hope you're having a great day wherever you happen to be. You're keeping healthy, you're staying safe, and helping other people stay safe in the process. Now, if you are new to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing. I always want to welcome you to this channel. And here on this channel, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We take a deeper look at why are the Masters and the teacher coming back now? Why is it important that they're coming back at this particular time? And of course, what does their return mean for you? Now, of all the videos that I've put up, and I've put up several hundred actually at this point, I think you can listen to them if you want, but the best way to get a lot of background information about Maitreya, about his emergence, about his priorities, of course, about some of these miracles and how they tie into it, how it ties into world events, and what is coming in the very immediate future for humanity and so forth. The best way to do that is to check out some of the links that I provided in the description portion of this video. And I would suggest, if you're new, to start with the Share International website. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that. By looking at any one of those links, but especially the Share International site, you can educate yourself better about this. You can learn more, of course, and then you can also see if there's any truth to it for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Now, I do have a few comments and a few questions to cover, and if you want to join the conversation by asking a question, post your question in the comment section. If you want to comment, comment. And if they're something that I think adds to the discussion, we'll talk about it. And now, I'm not expecting you to think that I'm an authority on anything, and I'm not claiming to know the answer to every single question or even the right answer. I do my best, so hopefully you'll take advantage of the links, and then you'll join the discussion by asking questions and posting comments, because it does help all of us understand this information better for ourselves, and myself included. I always like to put that in there. Now, the first comment is in French, and I don't speak French. So what I had to do is I had to write it all into Google Translate to see what this person was saying. So Nasira wrote in French, "It's too bad there's not a translation in French." And I went to the Share International website for you to see if there was any link that you could go to and you could read Share International in French. I know it was published in French. I know his books are published in French, but I couldn't find anything. And it's when I went there was a page for it, but it was down. That one particular page was down. So I'll go back and check it out. You can always go back, Nasira, if you want, and go to the Share International site and see if the translation page is up and running. If you can understand this, hopefully you can. If you go to Amazon, you can find books that were published by Benjamin Creme in different languages, and I'm 99.999% sure that they published his books in French, because he used to give lectures in France. So hopefully that will help. Unfortunately, I have had people ask me to translate my videos in different languages, and I've tried to do it on YouTube, and I can't figure it out. People have even given me the links to try to do it, and I've done what I thought that they were telling me to do, and it just didn't work. So if you knew how untech savvy I really am. I'm tech savvy about certain things, and other things I just can't figure out. and YouTube is one of those things that I can't figure out all the ins and outs of YouTube like a lot of people can. In fact, it took me weeks to figure out how to put even a photograph on my YouTube page. So that's how bad I am. And I've been trying to change the photograph a little bit, and I don't even know how to do that. So I don't even know what I did back then. So anyway, again, I apologize for it not being translated for you. Right now, you're just stuck with my version of English. And I'm sure if you are proficient in English at all and you listen to my videos, you're like, oh my God, this guy's grammar's awful. So anyway, all right. But thank you for that. And like I said, if I come across something in French, I'll throw it your way. All right. Next question comes from Paco Apalo. What if he who doesn't know he is yet, or is it fully aware? What? Now, it's funny, Paco, if you're listening to this. I actually understand what you mean. But Under normal circumstances, if you just came up to me in a store on the street and said that to me, I'd have no clue what you were talking about. But anyway, what if Maitreya doesn't know who he is yet or is fully aware? Is that what you're asking? I'm sure. He's fully aware. Now, to read a reply coming from Zen, she replies a lot, and her replies are always on point. I think what makes him the world teacher and the awaited one by all is the fact that he is fully awake and aware of who he is and who we all are. That is true. So it would make for a great movie if that was the case, for sure. And there have been a lot of movies throughout, the years that had a savior, messiah-like figure not know who they are and then discover who they are and then save the world. One that comes to mind would be The Matrix, of course, and it's very entertaining to watch. But in reality, no, he knows exactly who he is. Every one of these masters are fully aware of who they are. Now, they're not out there telling you who they are yet, but they are fully aware who they are as a divine manifestation of their own soul. They know that perfect. They know who they are. Now, they would say they're not perfect. We look at them as perfected members of humanity. They just look at themselves as beginners, really, because they see beings above them that are way beyond what we can even imagine. That we don't even have an idea of what their consciousness is like, but they do. And so they know that they're just working towards something. Now, the only caveat to this, with meaning that a master would know that they were a master, is if they were born in the normal way with a mother, they would be unaware of themselves as a master till about 3 or 4. So just after being a toddler, still, just out of diapers, really, and then they would become a fully conscious master at that point, and then live for hundreds of years as a fully conscious master. Never into adulthood would they not know, and then all of a sudden, pop, they know they're a master. It wouldn't happen. So, Maitreya was the first of our humanity to become a master on this planet. There were other masters and people who were living here that became a master before him, like the Buddha, but they didn't come from our own humanity per se. Like the Buddha came from the moon chain. There was humanity on the moon long eons and eons and eons ago. And he was, I believe, the last of his humanity to become a master. And he was a part of the same group that Maitreya was way back during Atlantean times to become a master. But if you were talking to the astrophysicist Carl Sagan, he used to say billions and billions of years or whatever, I'll say Maitreya became a master eons and eons and eons ago. If I was trying to sound like Carl Sagan. But ever since then, and this kind of goes along the lines of another question that somebody asked. So if I kind of duplicate some of my answer, forgive me. But eons and eons and eons ago, about 100,000 years ago, actually, the masters were out in the world like they're about to do again very soon. Okay, not 1,000 years from now, but just a few months, maybe a few years from now. And their approach has already started to happen, where they're coming back into the world, into these cities and so forth. But there was a great war between the forces of light and the forces of darkness at that time. It created the destruction of Atlantis at that time, and then the peoples were dispersed all around the world. And it was depicted in the Old Testament as the flood, was actually what they were talking about in terms of, they were talking about the destruction of Atlantis. And right now, if you look at it, it was very similar. That war was reenacted or resurfaced, I guess, a better way of saying it, during the time of World War I and World War II. So you can kind of get an idea of the forces that were at odds with one another, right? Just like so you don't have to go back very far and look at it through our history books of that's kind of how it was like. But it was during the Atlantean times. Humanity was used equally by the forces of light and the forces of darkness at that time. There was a great war, very similar to what happened in World War II, and it ended in the destruction of Atlantis. And then the masters of wisdom and the forces and the masters of involution, there was a stalemate between the two of them, and they both groups dispersed and left the public eye. And ever since then had been working and influencing humanity, but through their disciples in the world. That's basically the historical aspect of the masters. And Maitreya was a master at that time. He wasn't the world teacher at that time. There were other masters that were world teachers. He's only been the world teacher for the last 2,000 years and will also be the world teacher for the next 2,500 years or so, but was a fully conscious master along with these other masters and had been living in the Himalayas for eons. And Maitreya's abode was about 17,500 feet up, so quite a bit of ways up. You just wouldn't just go walking by his place by mistake, you know what I mean? And every one of these masters, from our point of view, were living in total isolation from our point of view. Now, their physical bodies were in isolation, but they were totally aware of what was going on in the world. They were communicating with one another. They were totally at one with everything, but yet, from our point of view, like I said, isolated. And they knew at some point they would have to come back. And the plan was just even 100 or so years ago that it would be another 1,000 years or so before humanity would be ready for them to come back. And then, like I talked about in the last few videos, with the defeat of the Axis powers right after World War II, and they weren't destroyed, but they were defeated, and with humanity creating the atomic bomb, they decided to come back. Maitreya decided that they have to come back sooner than they possibly could imagine, or humanity would destroy itself. So that's why they have been making this approach for the last, 70 years-ish or so. And then what happened is in the mid-70s, one master quietly slipped into New York. Then another one went into London, separate from Maitreya. One went into Geneva, and then one went into Darjeeling. He didn't have to travel very far if he was in the Himalayas, because Darjeeling's not too far. And then one went into Tokyo. And then two more came in not long after that. One went into Rome, which was the Master Jesus, and the other one went into Moscow. And then on July 19th, 1977, Maitreya did eventually leave his ancient retreat that he had been living in for eons in the Himalayas and entered London himself. And that's kind of the approach that and then more and more masters have been coming and moving into these cities. They will never claim themselves to be a part of the group of masters until Maitreya has declared himself on the day of declaration. But they're all fully aware, totally aware of themselves as masters. So hopefully that helps. Okay. But anyway, thanks for the question. Alrighty. And then, like I said, it kind of goes along the lines of this next one. Is he, Maitreya, a bodhisattva or an ethereal being? I don't really understand. I watched the webinar. It seemed, and this person, I guess is it a she or he? I'm just assuming it's a she. But anyway, was talking about the Share National webinar that this person saw the other day. It seemed he was a bodhisattva like Maitreya is taught in traditional Buddhism. Now it seems like supernatural or alien being coming to assist us. If that's what they were talking about, they are miles from what Benjamin Creme talked about. But no, the best way to really know more about this XXYX is to go to that Share International website. Listen to some of the lectures by Benjamin Creme. Read some of the articles from Benjamin Creme's master and so forth. Read some of the Sharon, some of the questions that people asked him that when he was alive and so forth. The one master's article that I would definitely recommend, reading is The Son of Man, and you can actually go if you're on YouTube now, but if you search for Benjamin Creme Son of Man, he actually reads it. It's the most incredible description of who and what Maitreya is, being one of humanity, having to go through all the pain and the suffering that we all are going through in our own lives. He's gone through every single aspect of human life and triumphed. And so that's why when he looks at all of us, he sees us all as the same as him. You know what I mean? He's just gone ahead of us in evolution. But he understands everything that we're all going through. That's why he even told me that he goes, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. That's what he said to me. He doesn't judge us. There is no judge. That's all coming from man. That wasn't even put in the Bible by godly inspired writing. It was put in there by man to control man. And so total misinterpretation of what Jesus talked about, total distortion of what Jesus talked about. And sadly, it's created the world in which we're living in and the problems that, billions of people who follow the church struggle with every single day. But it's a total farce. And it's a dogma that was, like I said, was put in there by man, but it's kept humanity enthralled for eons. Now, the distortions in traditional Buddhism, I'm not quite as familiar with. Okay, I'd have to go and read the texts of Buddhism to really understand what you're talking about. But just as I was trying to answer in the last question about the, is Maitreya fully aware? Yeah, he's fully aware, right? But he's in physical form. He doesn't, coming from another planet or anything like this. Now, it's interesting, too, if you ever if you go back and you really read a lot of Benjamin Creme's books, he thought before he knew anything about this that Maitreya, when he was reading it for the first time as a young man, that Maitreya was coming back from another planet, just as perhaps you might be thinking. But no, Maitreya is one of our own humanity, and will be here for the next 2,000 years in public eye, will be central to our lives, will be guiding humanity as a whole for the next 2,500 years, keeping us away from the abyss, teaching us more and more about the nature of laws and the laws of life in a way that only somebody of his stature can over the next 2,000 years. That's really his role. But right now, he's just on TV. He's on TV speaking to humanity, but not claiming to be Maitreya. And so people are missing him because he's not claiming to be Maitreya. And the time might not be right for all of us to recognize him. Now, I will say this, a couple things about that. Okay, so I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent basically on what you're saying, but I do think there's a few reasons why people might be misinterpreting and misunderstanding, not recognizing him as Maitreya on TV. Okay, so one is he might look totally different from what people imagine him to look like. I imagine him, in my mind, to look like the picture of him in the background of this video, the white headdress in that face. That's the face of Maitreya in my mind. But he might not look like that. He obviously looks totally different. He might be of a different complexion than that. He might be lighter complexion or darker complexion. I don't know. Ben described him somewhat in one of his books, and the way he described him looked very much how he looked when I saw him in a parking lot one time. Small chin, looked like the Maitreya. He looked a lot like the Maitreya Buddha statues that I'm familiar with. If you Google Maitreya Buddha, the small chin, kind of a small mustache, that's how he looked when I saw him in a parking lot one time. So is that how he looks? I don't know. You know what I mean? But that's kind of how I imagine him to look too. So, but he could look different ways, and he might be changing a little bit here or there. I don't know. That's one thing. The other thing is, the news media, as flawed as they are, and of course it's a lot of their corruption's coming out to the surface right now, but as flawed as it is are our representatives. They represent us because they communicate for us, and they give us the information and present it to us. And they do put narratives on it. They do color it the way they want to color it, but they are our representatives. So if the journalist who's interviewing Maitreya does not know that he is who I'm thinking that he is, and other people thinking that he is, right? The world teacher coming back, and they're just seeing him as an ordinary person, they might not think to ask him questions along those lines. And so Maitreya is not going to assert himself in any way until humanity is ready for it. And he won't know that humanity is ready for it until those journalists ask him questions about it. So I do think that's the other reason why, is because I think maybe the journalists aren't asking him questions that are bringing that out. You know what I'm saying? But also, and then lastly, to kind of touch on, and like I said, hopefully I'm answering this question, but the other reason why people might not be recognizing him is because we're not supposed to at this time, But if, and then like I said, how do I say this? I wouldn't be surprised, let me put it like that, if when we start to recognize Maitreya on TV, that he's a familiar face. We've already seen him before. It's just he's a master at being able to talk in a way that you don't pick up on him being who he is. So like I'll kind of quote a little bit of the Son of Man. Ben's master wrote, he said, "There could be little doubt that were he to appear unannounced in our midst, few would recognize him. So far from the general notion is he that he would pass unnoticed in the crowd. Thus it is today among his brothers as he awaits his invitation to begin his open mission. Many who see him daily know him not. Others recognize him but are afraid to speak, and still others wait and pray, hopeful that he may be the one for whom they dare not hope." So, definitely read The Son of Man. If you want to know who and what Maitreya really is, read that. That's coming from Benjamin Crime's master. That will give you a sense of how the masters see him, for sure, and have a clearer perspective on it than you could get really anywhere else. But, if you haven't already, definitely, learn more from the Share International site, from some of the lectures from Benjamin Creme. He talks about it at great length. So anything that came out of that webinar, I don't know, I wasn't there, I had to work. I know you asked me if I had listened to it. That is not the way that he really is. So he's not an ethereal being. He's in physical form. Whether he's in London physically at this time or doing interviews or giving talks somewhere else, I don't know. But his point of focus is in London, in the Asian community of London. So anyway, I'm sure he goes back there from time to time. So hopefully that helps. So hopefully I answered your question, XXYX, and everybody else. And you guys take care and have a great day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.